Afternoon, everybody. I'm going to apologise in advance. I am getting over the after effects of COVID. Unfortunately, I tested positive. Well, I've been in my 10 days isolation. So if I start coughing away or I just drop off where I'm sitting, please don't worry. I'm doing all right and just got an awful headache today. So my partner in crime, Karen Shields, is here as backup to help me out. And Laura Blake, who possibly not all of you have met. She's in my top left-hand corner of my screen, but I don't know where she is on yours. Laura's also an ATCM colleague, and she deals with policy for us generally, but she's here today to help out on the call. So it was a great start because the guest speaker, Gareth Robinson from Barnsley, has unfortunately cancelled this morning. So we haven't got one, but I've kindly dropped the lovely Keith Rundle from Bristol an email this morning to say, could he help start the conversation off and let us know a little bit about the opening strategies that Bristol have been doing or putting into place. Obviously, Boris spoke last night, so we're a bit more aware of hopefully the potential steps that are in front of us now to the hospitality trade reopening. So Keith, did you spare us 5 just to start us all off?
Yeah, sure. If this sounds unstructured and slightly disorganised, it's probably because having come out of a series of Zooms and been asked at 11, it's not as polished as I might want it to be. But what we found recently, certainly during this part of the lockdown, is that a number of our venues and nighttime businesses, etc., have been more willing to engage with us about how they might want the world to look going forward, and as much because they've actually had a bit more time to think about what they want out of the world and out of the nighttime economy, and how it should look going forward. So I'm not going to go into the detail around how difficult it's going to be, how challenging it's been, or the questions of exactly what's opening, because we don't know the answers to any of that stuff. What we've got back in feedback in the main is that they would like to see confidence building measures. Being a city centre, that's key. I think it's going to be more challenging for city centres potentially than more local high streets and maybe even with smaller towns. That the confidence of people returning into the high street is particularly relevant for those cities and for venues where people haven't been able to go. I think it's very easy to come back to this knowing that places have been open on and off through the year, but in fact quite a large number of nighttime venues actually have been shut for 9 out of 12 months. So the reopening element is really quite a challenge, and we've pulled together some checklists, daft though it sounds, of what you might want to look at when you're reopening. And we've got this from one of our bigger operators who had said through various bits of lockdown, there are just some really simple things that people don't remember because they haven't been doing it. What they used to do week in, week out, night in, night out, they haven't done for 6 months or so. And for one of her venues, it was just knowing where the keys were to unlock the fire doors. So, although it sounds a bit basic and you might think you're insulting venues' intelligence, actually just having a checklist if they don't have one can be quite constructive for that. And in similar vein, we have worked out there's quite an interest for an accreditation scheme which follows along the lines of the Best Bar None scheme, but also to do with customer experience and welcome. That has to be built into it. And that appetite is there, again, about building confidence, about being able to say, look, this is what now exists. Or equally, I guess, if there are current schemes, just re-promoting them, relaunching them, making sure that people know there are schemes in place that can help to build people's confidence in going into places they used to love but haven't been there for 12 months. So those fit together quite nicely for us. And what we then have been working on doing is trying to roll those confidence building measures under one badge. that go together with a campaign and a marketing campaign that in essence the venues can use themselves as well. So to get an overall, an overarching strapline, come brand, come lockup, that will be able to be used by as many venues as wish to use it. And that, I think, will just spread that sense of places are opening and they are together. You know, there are challenges around timeframes. There are challenges still because they're, you know, the dates are not before. The dates don't actually say on, and there's still conversations in venues as to exactly when they might go with that and whether they will open on the day, whether they'll wait, whether people will wait till the 21st of June when they think the footfall will be higher. So there's a whole host of different questions. So it's still, for us at the moment, it's still a question of preparation and just keep listening to what's going on out there. And I guess there's another couple of elements. We're looking at events that will again bring people back in without really being clear on what they are. Some of the ones we did last year around hearts that we placed in public spaces were well received and went well in terms of building the brand of Bristol and some place marketing elements, and they would feed into Purple Flag in the nighttime at the same time. But we are looking at more that would be linked into that. But it's a challenge because we don't know what events we can do at what time. So we suspect that we'll have a series of plans that will just be available to be launched, you know, X months in, because there is this challenge around how long does it take everything to get going. One of the biggest questions that we're asked, and to which I don't have the answer, so I'd love to have the answer if it's in the room, is gaining staff again, particularly SIA staff who've gone and got other jobs, or bar staff who are doing that, and will they come back? Are they available? We just won't know them until I guess the adverts go out. And the same is true of the student population that works in hospitality, of course, who may or may not be in the city where they're studying at the moment, or when that starts to change. So will that do to start off? There's a couple of other minor ones, but they're, you know, happy if the conversation should start. I feel as I'm doing a lot of talking.
No, that's really, really helpful, Keith. And, you know, following on from the various areas that I've spoken to, you know, you're doing very similar to other areas. And I think I was having a chat with Sylvia Oates a couple of weeks or so ago about reopening strategies. And I think one of the things that came up in that was it's fine having, you know, supporting the venues through the opening up and having everything in place, but it's also reminding them not to forget that they have, you know, they have licensing objectives that they have to follow, and they mustn't forget about the training that they have undergone to get where they are, and the simplest of things that might get forgotten because they're concentrating on everything else. So it's reminding them of everything really as a whole. Maybe offer some training. I think Sylvia is going to be offering some training through Best Bar None, just as like refresher training for licensees and things that will be free, just as a reminder. I don't know, has anyone else got anything to add? Rico, how's it going in Piccadilly Circus and Leicester Square? Because London's a bit more a different kettle of fish, to be honest, but
it's quiet. I was there last week. The evening nighttime has been closed for a year. It's not happened really. Some of the restaurants were opening on and off later into the evening when they were allowed, but no, it's we're almost going to need to restart and re-kick everything from scratch. So as part of the roadmap that was announced yesterday, we've been working on our timelines. So we've got an engagement session with the Knights Amy LeMay on Thursday as a starting point, and we're going to be working towards all the things other people have been saying. So using things like Best Bar None and Purple Flag to reignite and re-educate people, to show them, look, this place has always been a great place to come and do what you need to do. And we're going to work with Safer Business Network, our local business crime reduction partnership, to just drive that agenda along with our security teams, because they've been out on the street 24/7 since lockdown. protecting businesses empty and so on. And it's almost going to be like a re-engagement process. And listen, it's going to be, as we go along, what do people want? We can guess as much as we think what they'll want, but we look after a variety of sectors. So it's not just the traditional bars and clubs. We've got restaurants, we've got theatres, we've got casinos, we've got cinemas who are all involved in our nighttime. So it can't be one cap fits all. And it's going to be a massive push for an engagement piece at the beginning. And then once things get a bit more back to normal, start dripping into reintroducing all the different elements to make sure the standards are where they were before.
I think, yeah, everything's going to be very, very different. And it's looking at obviously the empty retail that we're going to have as well on the high streets is what we're going to do with that. I read an interesting article yesterday on community hubs and how they think that these are going to start to reopen in town centres, bringing the public in and doing community valued sort of activities, getting them to feel safe coming back out into the environment, back out into the open, not just about the leisure and the culture side. This is, bringing communities together that have felt very vulnerable and alone all the way through this. So I think, things are going to change. And I do think the hospitality industry, I know they've been massively hit, but they are quite resilient. And I think they'll be one of the industries that will be the quicker ones to bounce back once we're all open and running. Gail, do you want to add anything with a view from Ireland for us, please?
Hi, everyone. I can see Eric, Richard. Well, I can't see Ray. Richard, you're there, are you? And Maureen is there. I don't know who else is there. Look, we have, just looking on it, they've come out now with a plan to get primary schools back by phasing them back to school in March 1. We're looking at the end of April realistically before even retail is considered to reopen, and then hospitality midsummer, and even our pubs that don't do food might even be later than that. So there's a lot of discontent at the moment because there's mixed messaging coming through and there's not a clear pathway, and we're not having the same vaccine rollout that other countries are having. So they're opting for a very slow and steady and incremental reopening. But I just looked at the phased, what it was on the papers yesterday from the UK. We don't have a comparable timeline for reopening, but it's causing quite a level of distress. Particularly amongst hospitality, because retail will open here before hospitality will, and certainly a lot of our hotels. And then there's obviously, we're still within a 5K restriction of movement. So staycations, and we are going to be completely dependent for the rest of this year on the domestic market. All expectations, worst case scenario, I sat in on an ITIC, which is the Irish Tour Operators Confederation, and they had kind of a Goldilocks of, best case, worst case, and middle case. Worst case scenario, international travel won't be back to what it was for Ireland until 2029, which would nearly make you fall off the edge of your seat. And then their middle case was 2025, and then they were bringing down to 2022. So until we get more solid information on what the phased reopening will look like, but we are looking at the 5K restrictions staying in place for another while. And very concerned about our hospitality sector, because retail will open before hospitality, and at the moment we only have essential retail open at the minute. That said, we just went through a bid ballot process, and the vote count was on Friday, and we had an 80% yes vote, so that was a little bit heartening in the middle of a pandemic. But I don't know if the other guys have anything, but that's the sense that we're getting from our bid members, is particularly the hospitality sector is really, really stressed and concerned.
Can I just add something there, Sarah?
Yeah, of course, Karen, jump in.
I think it's really important to remember that the stuff that we're probably looking at, the majority of us are looking at, is actually what's happening in England, and the fact that the Republic, Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland are probably working under slightly different rules as well. And I think that's going to cause, well, not cause a problem, but it changes the discussion in some ways, because we're very much aware of the fact that other areas are having to go by different guidelines. I think the biggest problem we've got with the new guidelines is the markers that they've put in place to say that this will happen provided that the vaccine rollout continues at the level it is, providing the infection rate continues to go down, providing that the death rate continues to go down. So it's dependent on lots of things. So despite the fact we're trying to arrange this and get some sort of opening strategy, there's lots of markers there. So you don't want people to be going wild straight away. And I think that's the danger area, because people are so hungry now to get out and do something and look forward to the summer and all this business. I think if they jump the gun a bit, we might end up in a situation where it needs to be reined back. And I think it's the management of that that's going to be quite difficult. The other thing I wanted to mention as well, if it's okay, Sarah, is I wanted to let everybody know that on Thursday this week in the High Street Conversations, the ATCM are hosting, I posted the link in the chat box there. Everybody who's on this call at the moment is very welcome to join us on the High Street Conversations, where we're talking about the nighttime economy and the road to recovery. This is normally a member-only event. Obviously, you'd be very welcome to join that, but I think they will explore some of the other areas as well that we're talking about, and listen to some of the data and stats that are around as well, and might support some of your opening strategies. So it might be worth, if you're available, please join us. If you're not, you can pick up the link later and watch it later if you wanted to. So I think it was just worth mentioning that. That was all. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Karen. Anybody else on here that would like to add anything in and let us know how things are going and what they're up to, please? That's where everyone hides away.
I don't necessarily have anything to add. I've got a question though.
No problem, Stephanie.
So I've had a couple of calls today following the announcement yesterday from businesses around the use of outdoor space. So last year we did quite a big push in terms of facilitating the use of outdoor space for businesses, and necessarily providing them with seating or parks or anything like that, but just sort of facilitating and negotiating with the council about how much pavement they can use, and trying to kind of get as many businesses using it as possible. And I'm just interested to find out what other bids have been doing around that, what they were doing last year, what they're planning on doing this year, just to find out if we're sort of hitting the right mark with it.
Hi there, Sarah. It's Alexa from Reading.
Hi, Alexa.
I'd say the same as Stephanie. We did a big push on getting the pavement licenses, getting it in front of the businesses so they understood what was happening. And many of them took it up where it was possible for them to have seats, tables and chairs outside. But I was just in a meeting this morning, and it made me realise that quite a few businesses haven't done it. And I don't know whether that was just apathy or what, but I know from a Reading perspective, I'm going to be nobbling, shall I say, the ones who I think should really take advantage of it, because they can be opening a lot earlier. We've got some, you know, sort of central spaces in the town centre that they can share with other businesses. So Stephanie, I'd say we're probably on the same track.
Cool.
Is there any other bids that want to add to that?
Yeah, can I just say from Watford, we had the shared space. Most of our businesses have pavement licenses, so they're quite extensive. So we have a large open space, so we were looking at shared usage, which have been successfully used in the model run out in Hitchin, another Herts town, and we had absolutely no takers from Watford, and everybody just wanted their pavement license, and no one was interested at all in the shared space. So we found that there wasn't the appetite for it. There wasn't in another town, but not in Watford. So I think it's different models, different towns.
Yeah, possibly. Thanks, Maria.
Yeah, I wonder, is Sheila on this call? I'm just about to have a little look through. Because I know Melton Mowbray were also pushing on the pavement licenses, and the take up is quite good. So I think that's probably an area that a lot of areas will look into in helping businesses, especially depending on whether they serve food and that sort of side of stuff, because if that gives them a little bit more of an edge in opening slightly earlier. I would think the take up from some of the venues would be quite keen to look at as much help as they can with pavement licenses. Is there anything else? Oh, Sally?
Yeah, I was just going to say I've talked to a few people this morning about this, and there will be quite a few pubs in Newton Abbot that won't be open. You know, even with pavement licenses and outdoor seating, it's just not viable unless you've got a really massive area to get your staff back off furlough. So I've got one pub that will be opening because they do have a huge area, but it isn't viable for a lot of our businesses to just have the outdoor. So I think our town centre is not going to look a lot different from it is at the moment, which is the cafes that do take away, like Costa and the big chains, will continue to do that, but the smaller ones won't be open until they can get people back inside. So from where I sit, I was really disappointed with the announcement. I felt that Boris could have opened unlicensed, people not serving alcohol, so that we could have the town centres and the retail could have stood a chance for a bit of a bounce back. But you know, they are reliant upon each other, retail, hospitality and hairdressing, etc. You know, they form town centres, and if you've only got one or two of those elements, then you're not giving the other elements much of a chance. So I was a bit disappointed by that, and I think a lot of our businesses will be waiting until they can get people inside.
Thanks, Sally. And Gail, you've got your hand up.
I actually think it's a miracle that I found where to put the hand up on this one. This is terrific. Just to say to you is the previous speaker, and I didn't catch his name, had said about staff shortages. So that's coming through from the hospitality sector. We would have one of our more prominent restaurants for fine dining in the centre of town has lost two of its chefs. They've become DPD delivery drivers, and so that is going to come back when they try and get back to full reopening. But just at the moment, and Maureen and Eric and Richard are probably aware of it, each local authority has been giving 250,000. Did you guys have that in Waterford as well? To adapt an open space, a public open space, to either covered dining or outdoor dining. And a lot of the local authorities in place at the moment here have waivers on outdoor tables, chairs and umbrellas and that type of thing to try and encourage outdoor dining. But that 250,000 to each local authority is specifically for public spaces being more user-friendly to outdoor dining and accommodating social distancing. So that was a welcome addition. So now, of course, every town in the country is chasing that 250,000 is to go to their town. So if you have a county with a couple of towns and it has to be used just on one project. Maureen probably would be more up to speed on that now, but that's my understanding of it. It applies to one project only.
Yeah, Gail, to my knowledge now, I've not caught up with it this week, but Billy, who is dealing with it, was waiting the specific terms and conditions of that scheme. But yes, exactly that, to animate public space. But the devil is going to be in the detail as to what we can do, and that's what we're waiting on before we can progress it.
That's really helpful. Maria, did you have your hand up again?
I did, but it was really just to reiterate. I think it was maybe me, Sally, who was talking. I think that we're not going to see as many businesses open up as expected, because even the larger businesses which do have the outdoor space, the notion of opening the kitchens, bringing the staff in, opening it, but the cover numbers are still going to be so limited that actually, realistically, I don't think it is going to be worth their time. I think it's probably going to be the medium-sized establishments where they have a reasonable outside space that might actually benefit. But the larger establishments, some of the chains, I think they're going to take the decision not to open. And we've obviously got quite a few chains in town, and we've got to have discussions with them about are they opening, or what their plans are. And we haven't had those yet, but we will be contacting them all to find out what they are. But based on the previous sort of tier system and what we experienced there, I suspect we're going to have the same thing, a quieter high street initially than we anticipate.
I wonder if
That's
that's
really interesting.
Sorry.
Amanda, Amanda's
Yeah,
here from Salisbury
sorry.
and is a
Hi.
nightclub owner. So what's your perspective on all of this?
Yeah, we also have a pub with a garden, so we're lucky. I think that it's all to play for until after the budget, because it depends what support comes through. It's very different this time because there's no curfew and there's no restrictions. There's going to be no restrictions for those outside pubs to what they can serve if they have to, I think it'll be all to play for. I don't think anyone's going to make a decision about what they're going to do until after they've worked out what Rishi is giving back. So in Salisbury, we're quite lucky. Lots of the pubs have got gardens. I think that's very different to an inner city area where a lot of them haven't. So I think we'll see quite a lot of our pubs open. I'm writing with a couple of other partners evening and nighttime strategy now for the recovery. And that's going to be an interesting piece of work, building on what we did in about June last year, May, June, where we went round and I spoke to about 45 venues about pavement licenses. And everybody was really keen to get them, but then they actually didn't get them. We've only had about sort of 8 in the city get them for those who are in the middle. So we're going to push more on that. We also wrote for the we wrote a risk assessment with the police in our Managing the City pillar partnership that we hold, city partners. I wrote a risk assessment for the last night following quite a bumpy Halloween night. There was we wanted to make sure that we didn't make the same mistakes again, so that the police weren't trying to handle the last night before lockdown. We did quite a lot of work about a purple flag charter for all the venues to sign up to, on the police and everything. So we did all that, got it all ready. And of course, then we all went into lockdown and we hadn't really used that. So we're going to be looking at bringing that back out again, because I think the last thing we want to do is have really bumpy reopening, especially in that third week in June, when late night open again. We just don't want a bun fight. So I think it's about working with partners, trying to get that right all the way through. So we've got masses of work to do behind the scenes. So I'm looking at all the wider hospitality, not just nightclubs. So that's my report.
That's great, thanks Amanda, and that's really interesting. I know Stephen put in the chat that it's going to be interesting to see whether furlough will be extended. So there is conversation around that. I've heard some rumours that potentially it may well do for a couple of months, but whether that will be long enough, because obviously some of the hospitality industry they think won't open properly till the autumn, so they're going to need as much support as possible. So I think everyone's waited now with bated breath, isn't it, for next Tuesday for what Rishi's announcement will be, in how he's going to support everybody. So Alexa's got her hand up from Reading. Alexa.
Sarah, just to add to the mix, we've also got the Euros to think about as far as your security and your policing goes of your town centres. The Euro 2020 that was is now the Euro 2021 competition will start the middle of June to the middle of July, I believe. And there's a couple of home games in those first few weeks. I don't know if your towns were anything like our towns, but we kind of got caught off guard the last big football match and ended up having to shut down half of it once the games had finished. So yeah, just for anyone who hadn't factored that in, just think about it.
That's really helpful, Alexa. I hadn't even thought about that, to be honest. Those sort of side of things I think get forgotten, as you say, as we concentrate on everything else. Has I'm just trying to skim through. Has anyone else got anything to add? Just seeing if there's any more hands up or anything. OJ, is there anything? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, it's Sunil from Dunfermline. It's not just a home match, it is England against Scotland. So there are likely to be a lot of people out there trying to get a drink somewhere. So just be aware of that.
Okay, that's helpful. OJ, is there anything you'd like to add in on that? He's looking at me.
Hang on, sorry, just trying to find the unmute button. When you say, is there anything I'd like to add on that? Are you talking about
around the whole discussions, in regards to pavement licenses?
Oh, okay. So you're not talking about my, so long as you don't want my predictions for England versus Scotland. I don't want to upset a number of friends. Laura and Sunil, I can feel your eyes on me now. Yeah, I mean, one thing that's actually come up, I sit as part of a London recovery group, and one thing that was talked about in a recent meeting is some of the challenges around certain businesses when it comes to reopening, because there's a feeling that certain skills might not necessarily be there, whether it's because people have moved on, or if it's because people have been on furlough for so long. You're talking about close to a year now, that they're stepping back, and obviously that's going to be close to a year and a half by the time some of the evening and nighttime economy is able to return properly. So if you think about door staff, for example, you think about certain jobs within the evening and nighttime economy which are critical for its safe operation. One of the challenges is, will we have the skills there when we come to reopening? It's actually a topic we'll be discussing in more detail on Thursday as well, but it's something that concerns me. There's all that infrastructure that goes around supporting a safe and vibrant evening and nighttime economy, and that will probably need, to a certain extent, have to be rebuilt, and it includes things in licensing and safety and security. So that's something which is probably going to rise slowly to the top of the agenda, I think, soon.
Thanks, OJ. I'm just having a quick read along the chat that's pinging up along here, which is generally around pavement licenses. So it all sounds quite interesting. And I think the skills thing is a big thing. And that's what I mentioned earlier with that Best Barnum, where Sylvia is looking into. The next forum we have for Purple Flag, I'm going to get Sylvia to come along and speak at, because they're doing quite a lot of free, as I said, mentioned some free training that may be very helpful to areas. So I think it would be good for her to fill everybody in on what's going on out there and how we can help prepare, as we say, for reopening. So is there anyone like to add anything else? I'm skimming along just to see if there's any more hands up. But feel free. Is there anyone else that wants to add anything else from their area to give us an update, or is there anything that they're worried about in regards to reopening?
Hi, Sarah.
Oh.
Sarah, hi. Sorry, it's Rita from Safe Business Network. I can't find the raise my hand button, so I'm just going to jump in. Sorry about that. Yeah, just to say, just on AJ's point actually about upskilling, we are running a series of webinars which we hope will help businesses with that, certainly in the London area. They'll be free of charge to attend, so we can obviously share details of that going forward, but I think it is a real valid concern, not only just the sort of drain of personnel from the hospitality sector, experienced people working in that sector, but also security. So we're also looking to work with the SIA going forward as well, just to, because a lot of security guards would have been redeployed, say for supermarkets and so on, which is a completely different set of skills. So you know, we are looking very much to sort of try and remind security about what you need to do in the nighttime economy, raising issues like vulnerability and so on and so forth. So we can obviously work with you at Purple Flag with any information we have on our sort of events going forward.
Yeah, that would be really helpful, Rita, if you want to share any you know, Eventbrite links or similar. I'm happy to share them out with everybody, so that's much appreciated. Thank you. Wes, is there something you want to add? You've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, a quick one really. I was just listening on and wondering, Liverpool's got a relatively new couple of areas as part of the NTE built around industrial areas, the Baltic Quarter, which a lot of people might have heard of. And there's a newer one. The Baltic Quarter has been going for over a decade now, and a lot of tech companies and different sort of niche businesses have sprung up there over that time, and it's changed a lot. But there's like a newer version of that. Like I call it the North Quarter, but sort of in North Liverpool on the city centre. And like the Baltic area, it's an industrial area, which the Baltic area has changed quite a bit now. So I was wondering if anyone had any areas like the sort of the North area, which is a lot of industrial businesses that are still there. And I was interested to hear what people's points were around and whether they have any areas like this in other parts of the country where there's a lot of I hate the word gentrification. I hate that word like that, but it's like there's a lot of novel and new sort of nighttime economy businesses that are open there, new pubs and nightclubs and things like that. And I'm interested to hear how, and concerned also how that would, how would they reopen, because a lot of them haven't got outdoor spaces and things like that. You see, and there's a lot of industrial work going on around them and things like that. And I'm a bit worried about that, those sorts of businesses there. So it's just a quick point, really. Yeah. Sorry if I waffle.
No, that's great. Thanks, Wes. Has anyone got anything they can add to Wes for that? No? Okay. I'm just looking at Sunil's comment. Sunil, do you want to emphasise on that? Around the critical success factors for applying for Purple Flag this year, given the announcements and issues around pavement licences, etc. Do you want to just...
Yeah, I mean, the issue for me, we're about to apply for that this year, hopefully 25th of June. So we're coming up to that stage when things will be reopening. It is about that engagement with the businesses and what they want. And given what everybody seems to be saying about pavement licenses, it's not going to work. If the larger venues can't open either, particularly in a city central town centre arena, what's the focus we should be putting on? Is it literally about skills? Is it about the health and well-being of the general population coming to town? Or what? Is there anything out there that people want to share?
Thanks for that, Sunil. I think on my discussions that I'm having with, we still had really good interest with Purple Flag through this, especially in the last couple of months since past Christmas, which is great news. And a lot of people, the discussions have been around using Purple Flag as a safety tool, if that's the right word, to bring people back out, emphasising obviously what Purple Flag is about, but using that to entice the public to say we are COVID secure, we're doing everything we can be doing and should be doing, and using Purple Flag for that sort of side of stuff. So that's quite interesting. And what an interesting take on it, and that's how they've managed to get obviously their funding and through the bid or the council or however they're going to apply for it. But that's the general concept of how they're going to use Purple Flag over the next sort of, I would say, 6 to 8 months. So has anyone got anything to add on that, on how they're using Purple Flag in their area, for memento in safety or pavement licenses or anything around that? Where's your hand still up? Is that following from the last comment, or did you want to add on that?
No, sorry, I can't work out how to take it off. Do you know what? Just listen. I missed some of that then because I had to connect. The bandwidth dropped on me. And the point I was trying to make before I was getting at, I think, about those industrial areas, I didn't get it across quite the way I wanted. But yes, so talking about outdoor spaces and things like that, that's what I was getting at, and how that would integrate in the wider area, because those are the more established areas in Liverpool, like Castle Street or the Stanley Street Quarter or Concert Square or whatever. They're naturally NTE areas, whereas there's other areas on the edge of the city which might struggle. That was the point I was making, because of just with getting people outside basically and having it safe with proper pavement cafes and what have you. So yeah, that was it. Sorry, mate.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's great. Thanks, Wes. Is there anything people want to add on these discussions? I'm just pinging through to see if there's any more hands up.
Do you want to give you a bit of a perspective from Torbay?
Hi, Steve.
So, funny enough, I sit on the regulatory side as much as I sit on any other side. So, when the lockdown 1 closed, we actually offered our own scheme for Pavement Cafe and any other council land. And we had a huge take up. We did it for free, and we had a huge take up from businesses, and it was for all of last summer. And when the Business and Planning Act came in a few weeks later and started, well, it was probably longer than that, we then transitioned in time all of the Pavement Cafe businesses across as at their requests as they wanted to that new scheme. And so we probably transferred 10 or 15 businesses across to that new scheme. What we couldn't do was transfer across those on our own council land, and we then passed that back to other council departments to manage with the business. But it did mean that we probably had about 40 applications at the start, probably, to be truthful, whittled it down to 25 that actually we could deliver on. And then probably 15 of those are still running today, and will run through to the end of September. So yeah, quite a big take up. And the other point is that businesses reopening. So we did a lot of work on businesses reopening, and there's a toolkit on the Growth Hub website of the Heart of the Southwest, which probably when it was written by the regulatory side, but probably when it was written, it was probably groundbreaking. It was the first document out there that was really helping businesses to reopen, and it's been updated, but it probably applies equally now as it did then. And you know, I'll see if I can find the link to it in a minute and put it in the chat. But a lot of other local authority areas and business areas has used the link from our Growth Hub website because it was a useful document. So I think that's one thing. And we also went on to produce a guide more for the hospitality, particularly the restaurants and the pubs, to try and give them basic advice about what to do and what not to do. So, for example, though it won't apply this time with some relief, substantial meal. I mean, what a mess that made of the whole game, both from a COVID secure point of view, because masses of people didn't apply it and masses of people hugely abused it. Fortunately, it won't be there again, but we used the guidance that we issued as a way of advising people on businesses on what they should and shouldn't be doing, but also lots of handy tips. So, you know, there's lots of good practice out there to try and help businesses reopen. And as we begin to do that, we'll move from COVID enforcement back to business support, because, you know, we're here to help businesses, albeit that we're also here to enforce the law. So I'll try and, if I don't get to it today, because I've got childcare responsibilities starting very shortly, Sarah, I'll send you the links over the next day or so that you can circulate and people can get reference to, if that's helpful.
Yeah, that would be really, really helpful, Steve. Thank you. And thanks for sharing that. And if anyone has anything else, even if it's local to them, any documents that you feel that would help other purple flag areas through all this and what we're all about to go through, it would be really good if you could share any links with me, or even the documents themselves. I'm happy to ping them up into Basecamp for everybody to see, or do the usual group email to everybody. So please feel free to send anything on to me. As always, I'm happy to share where I can. Has anyone else got anything to add? Obviously, we're getting near the time for the hour slot, and people have other things I know they want to get back to doing. So has anyone got anything else they'd like to add?
I do. I don't know how to put my hand button up, but
that's right, Stephanie.
So a few people have approached us, and now our local newspaper has published an article about it because one of the businesses suggested it. There has been a suggestion that the bid could run a central testing point for all venues to give people a passport or a pass to go into venues. Has this come up for anybody else? What are people's thoughts? I think logistically it would be quite a lot for us to manage. There's only 3 of us. I feel like it might sort of actually fall more under sort of council responsibility, but then again, would it be better to put that underneath a bid so that they could kind of cut through some of the red tape and try and get things done quicker? Any thoughts from anyone? Or has it come up anywhere else?
It came up in the London Resilience Business Sector Partnership meeting, where it was felt that any venue or any place that insists on passports is a tricky route to go down to, because the vaccines are not compulsory, so it could exclude a whole class of certain individuals. That was what it was just basically discussed like that, and it was almost not discussed any further, because unless there's more government guidelines around that. So I think it could be wait and see situation rather than go all in and do that now.
Yeah, I agree. I think I was watching the news earlier, and I was sort of half watching it, and I think it was briefly discussed that they were thinking about passports, or they were calling them something else, weren't they? Okay, yeah. Thanks.
Sarah, I think just from Bristol's perspective as another bid, I wouldn't entertain that at all if that was the approach. I think it properly sits within public health and council environments. It doesn't sit within what I would generally take to be a big brief. For what it's worth, that's a personal opinion.
And I just say, I also think, I don't have a bid, but I think it's completely inappropriate to expect a bid to be taking on that responsibility. I would chuck that one out as soon as you possibly can, so that it doesn't become a stick that someone beats you with. Karen, I like the tail that's going in front of your face.
It's this little chap here who every time I'm on a Zoom call wants to be on it with me.
Steph, I'm going to agree with everybody else there. I think when the government has come out publicly and said it's not entertaining the idea of passports itself, unless where it comes to things like international travel, then they do need to think about people's levels of vaccination. I think when you also have issues of certain parts of the population not being able to be vaccinated because the testing hasn't applied to everyone, so we're talking kids and pregnant women especially who cannot take the vaccine, then you do get into real tricky territory in terms of who you're permitting to go into certain venues and who you are not allowing to go into venues. So that sounds like it will be a really difficult task for a bid to take on, and I'd wait for public health, for central government or something to go first and give proper guidance before you can take that forward.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I was concerned when I saw this coming out in the newspaper saying, oh yeah, the bid should do it, and I was like, no. So yeah, it's reassuring to hear that everyone else is feeling the same.
From in Watford's perspective, we wouldn't touch it with the barge pole either, because there is the issue about enforcement and all sorts of public sort of civil rights, public rights. It opens a massive can of worms. Wouldn't touch it.
Yeah, it's like somebody putting that grenade in your lap with the pin missing. Get rid.
Hi, Stephanie. It's Maureen from Waterford here. Just to say, a local company here had come up with a new way of testing people, even when it was just prior to vaccinations being available. And we sort of floated the idea of having a passport situation, and I did some of the groundwork on dealing with local. Now, there would have been major retailers and that in the area at the time to see if there was an appetite. At the time, as part of our COVID recovery group, this was considered an innovative idea and something that I suppose Waterford would have been the first, certainly in Ireland, if not further afield, to have such a thing in place at that time. there was zero interest from business, aside from all the civil rights issues that OJ has mentioned and that others have raised. Absolutely, it was a non-runner. The backlash from the public was incredible also. So there was just zero support from it anywhere. So
Okay.
exactly as everybody has said, don't touch.
Yeah.
No, that's a great one. Thanks for bringing that up, Stephanie. It's an interesting topic to discuss and see what happens with the way forward. So has anyone else got anything that they'd like to add in? Or Steve's kindly shared the link. I have copied it out of the chat, and I will circulate that on Basecamp so that everybody can see it, and I'll do an email with it on as well, which I'll do once this Zoom call finishes. So does anyone like to add anything else to today?
Sarah, just checking, have you talked about High Street conversations for Thursday? Have you given everybody the heads up?
Karen Shields kindly did a heads up first at the beginning of the call, and shared the details in the chat.
Yeah, thanks. So we've got a number of speakers lined up. So that includes Eric's with us. So Eric O'Brien, chair of Purple Flag Waterford, is going to be speaking with us. Dan Coombs from Elephant Wi-Fi is going to be giving us a bit of background to footfall for the evening and nighttime economy. And we're going to be joined by Michael Kill, who is CEO of the Nighttime Industries Association as well. So we'll be talking about the road to recovery for the nighttime economy, which nighttime economy in terms of recovery has to be separated from the daytime economy, because as part of the social business economy where it brings people together, not only has it been harder hit than other parts of our town centre, but also in terms of when we will be able to lift restrictions for the nighttime economy, it could be a lot later than other parts of the town centre as well. So we've got a real challenge on our hands in terms of getting the nighttime economy back up to speed. So we're going to be talking about all the barriers and challenges which that entails, and what we need to be looking at in terms of a business perspective, but also a place management perspective as well. So all are welcome. So that's 3:30 to 5 o'clock on Thursday.
Thanks for that, OJ. I will share the link with everybody. I'll do an all-rounder email after this, just in case people can't catch it. It's right at the very beginning of the chat on the right-hand side of your screen. But as I say, I'll reshare it. So I'll take that as everyone's happy with today's forum and discussions, as no one's got anything else to add. I'd like to thank you all very much for your time. I will check in with OJ next week to pull a date for March. And as I say, we'll get, I might actually ask Rita to do a little bit of a presentation as well for some of the work that Safer Business is doing, as we're asking Sylvia from Best Buy now, and I think that will all be quite helpful for those moving forward with the reopening strategy. So thank you all very, very much for your time this afternoon. It's good to see so many of you as well. I have missed you all. And continue to do so. But if you need anything from me, please don't hesitate to drop me an email. I am answering them. And as I say, it's really good to see you all, and take care, and we'll see you all soon.